All right. I assume you can all hear me. I don't know if I'll get any confirmation of that. So I will keep talking until somebody says you can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm delighted to be here. I'm actually super jealous that I am not there in person because the program looks amazing. But our director, Dr. John Nye, is on leave this week, so I'm holding the fort down here in Bethesda, and so I'm his backup quarterback. But I'm really glad to give you a few words of introduction. And for those of you that don't know much about the BRAIN Initiative, the Brain Research through Advancing Innovative Neurotechnologies Initiative, we're just going to call it BRAIN from here on out. I will be happy to tell you more. Let me see if I can just switch slides. There we go. I love to have two title slides because we have so many amazing graphics and images that come in through the grantees of the NIH BRAIN Initiative. This one courtesy of Antillia and Bernal in my second title slide. Again, I'm Andrea Beckel Mitchener, and I'm the Deputy Director of the NIH BRAIN Initiative. So just to, oops, where are we going? That's backwards. Okay. So I'll give you a little bit of background on the BRAIN Initiative. This was actually announced 10 years ago. We're on our 10-year anniversary, announced by the White House in 2013, and we made our first grant awards in 2014. And I know several of you in the audience looking at the attendees were probably in amongst those first awards, and a number of you are funded currently and have been funded over the previous 10 years of the initiative. This is a partnership between 5 U.S. federal government agencies and a number of private foundations. I won't go through all of them, but you can see their logos at the bottom of the slide. And for the NIH component, we are guided by 2 strategic plans that came out by committee, what we call BRAIN 2025. It says Brian, but it's actually BRAIN 2025, and the BRAIN 2.0 reports. And as government reports go, I highly recommend you read these. I would never recommend a government report to anybody, but these 2 are actually really well laid out, very interesting, and we have been following them really quite well. They have been a good blueprint for us as we develop initiatives and think about the future of tools and technologies for brain science. As I said, there is an NIH component of the BRAIN Initiative, and that's what I'll be talking about most of all. And our goal is to develop and apply these new tools for understanding how neural circuits underlie complex behaviors in health and disease. So we are very much focused on the circuitry and the function of that circuitry and the tools that will help us understand circuitry better. We are made up of 10 institutes at the NIH. I am at NIMH. Most of my colleagues, including Joe Monaco, who is in the room, are at NINDS. But we draw staff from all of these 10 institutes. Our bosses are the institute directors for each of these 10 institutes. So as we talk about changing the culture and the way science is done, this is actually quite unique at NIH to have 10 institutes banded together in support of a large initiative like this. So what do? We leverage emerging technologies and support new discoveries around circuit function. We are hopeful to fund projects that use these discoveries for the foundations for new therapeutic interventions for human brain disorders. And most importantly, and especially to this group, to disseminate and democratize the technologies and the data and the resources that are developed through the BRAIN Initiative for both basic discovery, more research, as well as clinical applications. Here's a little bit about our funding. Since 2014, we have invested over $3 billion, and that has gone to 1,300 BRAIN projects. This is through 2023. And you can see the growth of the initiative since its inception. I'm not going to go into details, but we have 2 funding streams, and the bars are denoted by 2 different colors. The most important one is the top line number, and in 2023, our budget was $680 million. So we are the size of a medium institute in and of ourselves. But in advancing the tools and technologies part of the BRAIN Initiative. And the reason this works so well is because we try to support projects and approaches that no one institute would support by themselves. But all of the 10 NIH institutes that support the Brain Initiative have an interest in what we're supporting and have a say in what we're supporting as well. Of course, many of you will know that we are still under a continuing resolution for fiscal year 2024. We're almost not in business for this meeting, but we have a reprieve through the middle of November, and hopefully we will not have a lapse in funding. We are actually holding back our 2024, our first grants in 2024 until we know more about the budget. So it does disrupt our thinking and our timeline on funding, but hopefully it won't. It will continue to be well thought of on the Hill and in the executive branch, and so we remain hopeful and optimistic that we'll continue to be supported. So a few more on the numbers. We have over 1,000 PIs across 234 institutions. These are all through 2022. We haven't added our 2023 numbers in, and that's supported by just under 1,000 grant awards. This has resulted in over 6,000 publications in 870 plus journals across lots of different fields. And if you were to do a word cloud of all of this, you'll see that some very specific things pop in, neuron being one of them, model, human, et cetera. I won't go into detail there. And the number of publications actually mirrors our funding in really significant ways. Not surprisingly, you throw some money at things, fantastic scientists will do good work and publish papers as a result. So we have a couple of foundational, this is actually a slide by John Nye. He published a paper on this, more of a vision paper called Transforming Neuroscience. So I would refer you to that paper in Cell for details, but essentially there are 3 transformative projects that were developed under his guidance when he first came on as director. One was building a Brain Initiative Cell Atlas. So our first atlas, the BICCN, the Brain Initiative Cell Atlas Network, Cell Census Network, sorry, that's what the C is, was supported, and now we have transitioned into what we call the Brain Initiative Cell Atlas Network. So BICCN to BICAN. BICCN awards have technically been completed, although there's lots of work going on. And BICAN has just started up. And BICAN will map brain cells and circuits across multiple species, and there was an emphasis on non-human primates and humans in this second phase, and we are in year 1 of that phase. Maybe we're starting year 2. We're very close to the beginning of a 5-year program. The other project that just started is something we call Brain Initiative Brain Connects, Brain Initiative Connectivity Across Scales. This is actually providing a wiring diagram. So the cell census is looking at cell types, and the wiring diagram will follow with connects, and we hope these projects interact to map all the connections in the brain. And finally, we have what we call the armamentarium, and this is actually using the information, using the data from mainly BICAN, but also through hopefully Connects and other projects to develop specific tools targeting cells in the brain that we could use as a part of a toolkit to not only do more research, but also potentially for clinical applications. And that will be based on the molecular identity of the cells. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Brain Cell Census Network, because this is a flagship project. It has been going. It's our longest large-scale project. I know many of you in the room are also a part of this, so I would refer you to the experts in the room who are members of this program. But essentially, we started funding this in 2017, and the first phase focused on the mouse to really build the tools and understand what capabilities were needed to look at the molecular identities of the cell. The culmination of a lot of work was a first batch of papers that really focused on primary motor cortex across multiple mammalian species. And this was really done in unprecedented depth and breadth. This was a tranche of papers in the Nature journals back in 2021, and they are still getting a lot of views, and it's been a really important contribution. So what are we learning? Organizational principles that underlie the different types of brain cell types. The project itself, again, if we're talking about doing science differently and doing neuroscience differently, this one brought together an amazing team of 250 researchers across 45 institutions on 3 continents to really bring expertise together. Again, no one group, no one grant would probably be able to do this, but it was really a significant achievement across for team science. And it set the stage for the Human Brain Cell Atlas, which, as I said, launched this last year in 2022. And it really taught us how we could scale, what we needed to do, but there's still so much to do in terms of computation and really understanding the power of the data collected in support of the different cell types. We've already seen some interesting papers come out, some interesting results around brain cell types that may be more vulnerable in Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, and also some other diseases coming out now. So it's really providing a critical new knowledge at a level that we haven't seen, a level of analysis that we haven't been able to see in terms of whole brain understanding of the cell types. Just a teaser, stay tuned. This week there will be another terrific announcement about another tranche of papers that are coming out from the BICCN, again, looking at human and non-human primates. I'm really looking forward to seeing, we're getting a lot of press inquiries about this from our preliminary. So I think you'll see a lot of information coming out about those papers. As a result of all the research that I just noted, there's this whole BICCN data ecosystem that spans the breadth of the consortium. And the data that are collected are molecular in terms of transcriptomic, epigenomic. There's also lots of beautiful anatomy and morphology and imaging data, really high resolution, cell type specific data. You can see the graphic on the right. And these data sets are being integrated into a knowledge base that will provide really unprecedented view of the spatial and anatomical and molecular components of the circuits in a cell. They're all being co-registered in 3D to a mouse reference atlas. And this is based on an average of over 1,600 mouse brains. So this was a huge undertaking for a mouse. You can understand when we now move into the bigger brains, into non-human primates and primates, the undertaking in the next 5 years is even grander, but I believe, based on what we've seen, the productivity of the groups that are working on this and their dedication to the task, that we will have something very similar for larger brains in the next 5 to 7 years. So we do have a number of data archives associated, Dandy being one of them, of course, with the Brain Initiative Cell Atlas, the Cell Census and Cell Atlas networks. I'm not going to go into the details of all these. Joe Monaco is in the room. He is part of the Office of the Brain Director. He is your expert on all of this. I know it sounds like he's giving a talk on Wednesday, but try to get in touch with him between now and then if you're not going to be there Wednesday. He has all the information you would need about brain, the data sharing policy that was mentioned, that you mentioned, and also all of the way that we're thinking about data and computation and integration, et cetera. I will skip through that. One other program I just want to mention that was launched this year is called the Brain Behavior Quantification and Synchronization Program, or BBQS. The goal here is to develop and validate next generation tools and approaches to quantify complex behaviors and also map those complex behaviors with simultaneous recordings of brain activity. We have an RFA on the street for organisms like any small mammals, et cetera. I think it's all specific to vertebrates. We also have a human RFA, request for applications, that's active. There will be a data center associated with the BBQS data, just as we've done with our other large-scale programs. We had a technologies around sensors workshop in early May, which was super exciting. All the different wearables and different ways you can measure environment and then hopefully link that to what's going on in the brain. And there's a notice on the street for data archives for these data as well. So again, we're building this program from scratch. We have some great program officers who are working on this. It will be open for a while. We have not yet made awards for fiscal year 24. As I mentioned, the budget is holding us up a little bit, but we hope to announce some really exciting projects associated with our first batch of BBQS grants. And this will be run as a consortium, as a number of our large-scale programs are. So there is one more receipt date. Actually, I think there's two more, one this year and the second receipt date in February of 2024. So check out those announcements if you're interested. I want to spend just a little bit of time on something. We talk about how doing science differently and changing the culture of science, and that is part of the DNA of the BRAIN Initiative. Not only is the science that we're doing fantastic, but the way we're doing science is innovative as well. We introduced a program called the Plan for Enhancing Diverse Perspectives, which is now a component of all of our BRAIN Initiative grants, our applications. Many of you have probably written one of these now. In our research, as part of the research strategy, we are asking investigators to submit a one-page summary of how they plan to enhance diverse perspectives bringing in diverse perspectives into their project. This can be anything from training to partnering with lower resource institutions to bringing in individuals from lots of different fields. We consider career stage all the way from trainees to senior investigators as really important voices on a project. So that can all be a component. I encourage you to go to the website that's listed at the bottom of these slides. I think these slides will be shared. If not, Joe or anyone, you just Google Plan for Enhancing Diverse Perspectives, and BRAIN will come to the homepage for this and will tell you all the information you would need to do for that. This has actually been picked up across NIH. There's a number of different RFAs and PAs that you will see this. So for any grant application that you're going to put in the future, you may be asked to submit as part of that application this one-page PEDP. And we hope we can change the culture and be more inclusive in science as a result. There's a paper also associated. Our colleague Brian Richardson helped author this paper that really goes into a little bit more detail about how the BRAIN Initiative thinks about this. So not only do we have the PEDP, but we also think about diverse scientific workforce in a number of other ways. We support lots of training mechanisms. For those of you that have trainees, we have an F99K00 as part of the NIH blueprint. We also have a diversity K99R00. This is for postdocs that are transitioning into junior faculty positions. And we do lots of diversity supplements. So if you have a student or trainee who's interested in being part of a BRAIN project and they fall into one of our categories for diversity, we encourage you to bring them onto your project using a diversity supplement to your NIH BRAIN grant. We also do things like build capacity at low resource institutions. This announcement is specific for minority serving institutions and IDEA eligible institutions. I won't go into detail there, and of course the PEDP, which I just mentioned. So some takeaways for you today. BRAIN funding, we are looking to advance these tools and technologies, and we want them to make their way into the clinic ultimately, but also provide tools and novel approaches for additional research. Number two, BRAIN funded teams are developing amazing new resources and laying down this foundation. We're creating this new paradigm for doing science, accelerating the pace of discovery, and finally continue to build momentum for new tools and resources. The data infrastructure is key to this, and providing the ecosystem and the support for understanding how the brain works and how we can develop cures for these diseases. This is just a teaser because I know Joe will go into more detail on Wednesday. But again, the strategy around our data, we have a very assertive data sharing policy. It actually is very similar to the NIH policy. In fact, BRAIN was the first to adopt this, thanks to folks like Greg Barber. And we piloted that assertive data sharing expectation, and now it has been picked up across NIH in general. We do this through supporting archives. A number of these are listed on the slide here, and the domains, as well as a tally of data sets. And Joe can go into much more detail about this either if you chat with him separately or in his talk on Wednesday. We also have funding opportunities around data integration, theories, models, and methods, and some of the infrastructure like coordinating centers, et cetera. So to stay up to date on the BRAIN Initiative, here are some ways you can do that. Again, we have, at any given time, we have 25 to 30 active funding announcements on the street, and some of them have been in existence since the beginning of the BRAIN Initiative, others come and go, so it's important to monitor that. You can subscribe to the BRAIN blog, you can visit the BRAIN Initiative website, which has just been revamped and is beautiful. As a former program officer, I would encourage the third check mark, sign up for NIH guide notices. That will be your weekly email that talks. Any NIH funding opportunity is announced in the guide, and that is a sort of a one-stop shop for, and you can search it, it's searchable, et cetera. One-stop shop for funding opportunities. And finally, connect with your institute or center's BRAIN program officer. I always want to make a plug for the program officers. We have lots of information about who those folks are. Anybody who's listed in it is in an announcement, is part of is contactable, and we want you to ask questions. That's what program officers exist for. That's what they live for. They are there to help you navigate the funding system and find funding opportunities that might work for you. And I understand Joe just sent me a message that his talk is on Thursday. I apologize, I think I kept saying Wednesday. And I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a great meeting. Again, I am jealous, but it looks like a fantastic program. So hopefully in the future I can be there in person. And I'd like to thank you for your attention once again.